I can't lay in bed all day and let my kids watch TV and be like, well, God's got this. Hey everyone, this is Yvette Hampton. Welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. I am back today with Rachael Carman. She is part of our Meet the Cast lineup. If you missed our episode on Monday, go back and listen to that because it's so encouraging. And we ended in a way that one of the things I love most about being a daughter of the King is that we get to give him all the praise and glory. And
Yes.
it really takes so much pressure off of me as a mom and as a
Yeah.
wife and as a teacher, because I don't have to be responsible for it all. Now I am responsible to obey and I'm responsible to move forward in what God's called me
Mhm.
to do. I can't lay in bed all day and let my kids watch TV and be like, well, God's got this.
No, that doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way. I have to be intentional. I have to be
Mhm.
obedient and I have to, be mindful about how we're spending our days and the things that we're doing day in and day out. But God is so faithful and he fills all the gaps in. And I actually want you to talk about this, Rachael, because now you have graduated 6 of your 7. And it's one of the should I not remind you about that? I'm sorry.
It's so fresh. But
Yeah,
yes,
just
yeah.
kidding, just kidding. You've graduated your first. Is that better?
Sounds better.
Okay. But you've graduated several of your kids already. And so share with us moms, and this is encouragement that I need. I actually wrote this and I think it was in our last newsletter. And I said, one of the reasons I do this podcast is because I need this encouragement as much as all the other moms. I would love
Yeah.
to say I just do it just for them, but that's not true. I do it for myself as much as I do it for those listening. I need that encouragement. I need that affirmation. I need moms like you, Rachael, to come alongside me and just to say, your kids are going to be okay. You're going to have holes and gaps in their education, and God's going to fill those in, and he's going to do what he's going to do with your kids. So when you were in the thick of it, it's actually one of my favorite parts of the movie is that we have photos of lots of different
Oh, yeah,
families
yeah,
and some of our cast members of their families when they were kids. And so your family has several photos. And so it's really fun
yeah.
because we get to actually see what your kids look like when they were really little. And there's a couple pictures of them, of you and them in your homeschool room. And I think
Yeah,
one you're saying the Pledge of Allegiance and things like
yeah.
that. So I would imagine that during those years, you also felt like, am I screwing this up? Am
Oh,
I
sure.
doing all the right things? So
Yeah.
take us back to that and then bring us to where you are now.
Yeah, so that is kind of a blast from the past to step back, to step all the way back. I was just going through some things here because, graduating number 6, I'm sorting through a bunch of stuff and putting things away, which is my goodness, really? And for those of you who've read me for years and years and years, I used to joke about one day I was going to find all of the scissors that I had purchased all of those years because I could never find a pair of scissors. Well, I'm finding all of those
Oh
scissors. I have
gosh.
a whole drawer full of scissors. Now that everyone's gone, I have scissors. Yeah, I remember, and our first year of homeschooling was in 1996. So that's how long ago it was when we started. And in 1996, though it was legal here in North Carolina, it was still relatively new. And the general advice at the time was don't go out during school hours,
Right.
just to be safe, just to not trigger anybody to unnecessarily turn you into truancy. And we kind of did that. We had a larger yard, so I didn't really worry about that. But, as the kids got older, we had lots of critics, neighbors, family, friends, church. Church was kind of hostile back in the day. And I hope that that's not as true as it was back then. But
Yeah.
it was really hard. And, when everybody else is questioning you, it's kind of easy to start questioning yourself, right? And you're thinking, maybe this really isn't the best thing to do. One of the approaches that we took that retrospectively, I can tell you was the right thing to do was I really, though we believe and advocate, obviously, as a company in Apologia, but also as a family for academic rigor, I really didn't believe that tears needed to accompany lessons. And so when we would do something and the kids would just get so flustered and so overwhelmed with, fractions or long division or maybe even something as easy as a apple, I would just close school down and we'd go
Yep.
outside and go for a walk. Um, but yeah, there were times that I was just like, oh my goodness, we didn't read this book, or did we ever even talk about semicolons? Or, oh my goodness, we didn't do spelling last year, and you feel like you're not doing it all. And here's the deal, you're not,
Yep.
but they're not in the school system either.
That's right.
So it's
It's
just an
impossible.
illusion. It is impossible. And we somehow think that institutional school gets it all done. And they don't get it all done, just like you don't get it all done, because the object of being here in this life is not to get it all done.
Right.
It's actually to lean in the one who's already done it all, right? God created it all. He's got the beginning and the end in his hand. He's got a plan. He's the arc of history. That's what I mean when he's got it, right?
Yep.
And I love what you were just saying too, though. I mean, we are responsible for being diligent as homeschool moms, as wives. And to me, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. To me, at first, and I'm wondering if this might be some of the holdback for moms now too, because I know in the past when I've spoken to those considering homeschooling, maybe at a conference, there are those who intuitively realize that this isn't just about their kids,
Right.
but that it also is about them. And I mean, I've had them very honestly come up and go, you know what? I just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that selfless. I don't want to have to give up certain things in my life. I just don't want to.
Yeah.
And wow, I can appreciate that. I mean, I really can. But I will tell you honestly, I am so glad not to be the same woman that I was when I started this.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful. And I'm not, approaching perfection by any stretch of the imagination. I have the hope of heaven for that, right? I get to be
Amen.
glorified in the by and by, and I've got a long way to go. But I can see the work of God in my own heart and mind and soul. And I can see his fingerprints, evidence of his chisel, right? Because there were parts of me that needed to be chiseled off,
Yep.
not just sandpapered, right? I mean, knocked off. I'm so grateful. And I think having had that experience, and very intense at times. I mean, chisel is not painless. Sandpaper is not really painless, but have you experienced that yourself? I mean, that whole sanctification component, I didn't anticipate that at all in this. I mean, I felt
Oh, yeah.
broadsided by that. I didn't know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that I have changed so much in the last 11 years of homeschooling. I feel like I've grown spiritually more in the last
Mm,
11 years than I did in the, 36 years prior to that.
yeah.
It's just been or 34, 35 years. How many years? Am I making myself too old?
No,
Um,
no, you're doing
but
great.
yeah, I just feel like, and it's because when you're the teacher, I mean, everyone knows this. When you teach something, you learn it better than when you're trying to
Mhm.
just learn it on your own or learn it from someone else. When you have to teach
Yeah.
it, you really have to dig in. And so my favorite part of homeschooling is doing Bible, studying God's word with my girls and reading to them.
Mhm.
Um, we've done it always. I mean, since they were itty bitty, and I've spent more time studying God's word in the last 11 years than I ever have. And so I
Mhm.
just know it better, and God has grown me. And like you,
Mhm.
I mean, there's so much growing still to do, and there will be until the day I die. But that's good because that means I don't ever feel like I've arrived,
Right.
like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm done. Check that
Yeah.
box. I know all there is to know about God in the Bible.
Yeah.
Um, but there is so much, so much joy and hope in
Mhm.
knowing that God is using homeschooling my girls to grow me spiritually. But let's
Yeah.
take a quick break. We'll be right back.
You're not inadequate. You are perfectly capable. I mean, what is it about a parent that when their child turns 5, all of a sudden the parent's no longer a viable option? Like, oh, you're done. Now it's the school's turn.
I think the quality of education has steadily deteriorated in America. There is an agenda to steal our children.
You feel inadequate because you've been taught by our school system that you're inadequate.
We had no frame of reference for homeschooling other than it just seemed like torture. Like, why would a sane woman choose to be locked up with her kids for 18 years in a row when a school bus would come and take them away and give you like a 9-hour break every day?
No one knows your child better than you do, and no one loves your child more than you do.
And homeschooling changes the game on everything. Homeschooling allows us to say to the child, what sort of life do you want? What sort of God-given dreams, talents, and abilities is he speaking into you?
When we think about classroom education and we ask what makes for good education, almost every professional educator will say low student-teacher ratio, teachers who care, good methods, good curriculum. Well, in homeschooling, you get the best of all of those things.
What we discovered is that it's very efficient to homeschool.
You have the person who knows the student the best. You have the ability to customize the curriculum around the student. You have a great student-teacher ratio.
And I realized I am accomplishing with Sierra in 25 minutes to an hour every day what is taking the school system 8 hours a day, 5 days a week to accomplish with my older daughter. I loved watching the light bulb come on and watching her want to sit down and read with me. And I loved spending time with her.
There are just so many benefits, including being able to have a relationship with your own children.
Continue doing what you're doing. Don't give up, because I do believe that homeschool moms are America's greatest heroes.
We're back with Rachael, and we were talking before the break just about the Lord growing us as people, as moms, as wives, in addition. And it's just one of the greatest benefits that comes from homeschooling and having our
Yeah.
kids home with us. The hardest part, I think, for me, and I don't know if you find this to be true, Rachael, is that I also, because I'm with my kids all the time, I get to see my character flaws magnified times
Yeah.
a million. And,
Yeah.
sometimes they're bad attitudes that are just reflecting my bad attitude and things like that. And
Mhm.
that's probably one of the hardest things for me in homeschooling. is I'm like, I don't want to see all the bad things about myself being manifested in my girls, because then I have to correct them, which means I have to correct myself.
I know. That is so true. And I've totally experienced that on more than one occasion. Just, you know, I might not roll my eyes or slam the door or stomp my feet because I'm more sophisticated than
Right.
that. Um, but I see my kids do that. I'm like, oh, yeah, that was me. I did that, or don't talk to him that way when I just talk
Right.
to him that way. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And I got to tell you though, as painful as the sanctification is, and it is painful, there's so much liberation to be liberated from yourself,
Yeah.
right? And to be set free to be the person that God has actually intended you to be. Look, he didn't create you to be selfish. He didn't create you to be manipulative or controlling or any other negative adjective you want to put in there. He actually wants to set you free to be who he intended for you to be,
Right.
which is a representative of him and all the fruits of the spirit: loving, joyful, peaceful, all of
Yeah.
that. And I mean, again, I'm not there yet. I mean, I love what the Apostle Paul wrote, right? I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it, but I continue to strive forward. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, I just striving forward, straining towards the goal set before
Yeah.
us. And I got to tell you, I want that for other moms.
Yeah.
The old adage, misery loves company. That's not what this is.
Yeah.
It's not, I want other people to be miserable with me. I want other people to be free.
Oh, yeah.
You taste the freedom available in Christ Jesus, free from the shackles of sin, free from the death grip of the enemy who is
Yeah.
just trying to discourage you all the time, free to really be who he's planned for you to be, and then free to be that mom to these kids that he's blessed you with. And
Yeah.
so, to circle back to what we talked about on Monday, if that's one of your fears, that you do have to let go of yourself to do this journey of homeschooling, I'm going to tell you, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Letting go of yourself, because he's right there to catch you. And I look back, and I'd be curious to know if this is true for you too, because there's so many things about our story that are similar. I had a plan for my life. This was not it, right? But man, sometimes when I dare to look back and think about what I thought I wanted, what I thought I wanted to achieve, what I thought success would be, and what he's done,
Yeah.
man, I wouldn't trade it.
Right.
I mean, my plan was so lousy. I mean, it was so empty, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
Has that been your experience too?
Yeah, in a sense, yes. When it comes to homeschooling, I mean, of course, that
Yeah,
was never my plan. My plan always was to be a wife and a mom. And I worked in the corporate world before I had kids, so I kind
yeah.
of got that out of my system. And then I
Uh,
realized it was not all it's cracked up to be.
uh,
Um, and my jobs were fine, but I truly love being a wife and being a mom.
mhm,
There's nothing else I'd rather be doing. But I like that you talk about that because there are so many who still are holding tight to their dreams and
mhm.
what they've aspired to be and do
Yeah,
for their whole life, and instead God has placed them in this role of
yeah,
mom and homeschool mom and wife. And I think oftentimes, maybe there are moms who are still trying to hold on to both of those things. And I'm not saying that moms can't work and can't help provide for their families.
sure.
You and I both work
Right,
from
right.
home. We
Yep.
both work in the ministries that God has called us to, but our primary
Mhm.
responsibility, our primary function and job is to care for our home, to care for
Yeah,
our families and our children and our husbands. And there is just so much joy in that. I think I come from a little bit different perspective because it took us so long. It took me, 11 years to become a mom after we got married. And so I was on that other side of it where I so longed for that.
mm,
And I was actually thinking this morning, one of these days, I'm going to need to kind of give my testimony about our journey of becoming parents.
yeah.
Finally, I've never really actually given that whole testimony, but I
We'll all
longed
look
for it.
forward to that, so I'm
Yeah,
sure that that would be a blessing to many people.
yeah. I just looked forward to it for so long that when and like we talked about perspective before, it
Mhm.
changed my perspective because when
Sure.
I did become a mom, I knew what I had. I knew
Mm,
the blessing that I held in my hands.
yeah,
And I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything.
yeah,
But
yeah,
but I know a lot of moms do feel that way.
yeah,
And as you had mentioned this before when we were talking, that oftentimes they don't understand the opportunity that they're holding in their hands.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and, and I think too, and we might have to, I don't know how far we can unpack this, but
Unpack it, sister.
I think, yeah, I think at this moment, I am tempted, and maybe you are too. I am tempted to really begrudge this moment that I'm in. I'm just like looking around at the world going, seriously, are you kidding me? Did it have to be now? Did this have to be going on now? I mean, I've got things I want to do, places I
Yeah.
want to go, people I want to see. And I'm just like looking around feeling like things have just gone crazy really quickly. And I love what John Stone Street, I've heard him a couple of times on Breakpoint, and you're probably familiar with his ministry, but something that he says that I totally agree with, and I've said this for a really long time, but I've really had to remind myself about this. And to these moms right now who are feeling this angst and this frustration, like their backs against the wall, right? Maybe they don't want to, or maybe they're just terrified. I've known moms that are just really scared right now.
Yeah.
God is on the throne.
Amen.
God is on the throne, and this is our moment.
Yeah.
This is our moment. I can tell you so many, stories in the Bible where people were in really stinky situations. I mean, just lousy situations. Whether you want to talk about Gideon in a wine press thrashing wheat, by the way, you don't thrash wheat in a wine press. P.S. Or you want to talk about Esther getting caught up
Oh,
with the
yeah.
choice of a new queen after the last one's been exiled, right? Because he was drunk and wanted her to parade herself in front of all of his other drunk friends, and she wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about all through the biblical narrative, there are people in really lousy moments of history, and we just read it
Yeah.
because, we know the rest of the story and it works out, right? I mean, Joseph is sold by his brothers. I mean, I could go on and
Yeah.
on and on.
Yep.
And I'm just reminded that this is our moment. The God of the
Amen.
universe, the master of creation, has put you and me on this planet, wherever we are, geographically, whatever community we're in, whatever neighborhood we're in, whatever family circumstance we're in. He has us here for a reason. And
Amen.
moms, I want you to get this. This is your moment to do something amazing, to lean into the God of the universe and trust him in a way that you've never trusted him before.
Yeah.
This is your moment.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. I was just talking to a friend the other day, and he was sharing with me, God has just given him this platform to speak truth about a lot of things that are happening right now in our culture. And he was really discouraged because he's overwhelmed. And
Sure.
he said, I never wanted this platform. I never asked for this. I never wanted it. And it's really hard. And I said, but you don't understand. It's funny that you mentioned Esther, because I literally said, have you ever read the book of Esther? He said, I'm reading Esther right now. And he's a believer. He said, I'm actually reading through Esther again right now. And I said, think about Esther. And we've done a whole podcast on Esther, Abby and I have. And I said, think about her. She never wanted her platform either.
Yeah.
But God placed it in her lap, and she had a choice to make. She could have said, sorry, thanks, but no thanks. I'm out of here.
Yep.
But instead she said, okay, I'll do this. And if I die, I die. And she again was reminded, you're here for such a time as this. And we are here for such a time as this.
Right.
No one else is going to mother our children the way that we are. No one else is going to teach them, love them, raise them, train them,
Right.
and armor them up to be God's soldiers the way that we can, in the way that we will.
Exactly.
Because God's given them to us. And so we are here for such a time as this. And I love that encouragement so much. I love there are some moms you just literally want to get in their faces in a loving way and just grab them by the, shirt and say, you've got this.
Yeah.
You're good.
Well,
You're okay.
I think we're concerned. I'm concerned, right? And my kids are grown. I mean, I've got 3 grandkids. I'm concerned for them.
Oh,
Look,
sure.
I can spin around and wring my hands and contribute to the crazy.
Yeah.
Or I can stand on the solid rock of Jesus Christ and be for them the stability that we all need.
Right.
Look, that's the opportunity. You're the mom. Be the mom.
Yeah.
Be the mom that God has called you to be by standing firm
Amen.
and trusting God.
Right. Trust him to hold you. Trust him to guide you.
Yes.
Trust him to give you the wisdom. He tells us that if we ask for wisdom, he will give it. And
Every
he will do
time.
that. He is a good and faithful father. So
He is.
we are out of time again, but we're going to be back tomorrow. We're going to continue this conversation. Rachel, thank you again. I know you guys heard in the first episode, but you can reach her and find her, all things Rachael, at rachelcarman.com, and on Facebook and Instagram. We will put those links in the show notes. Please share this with your friends. And you guys, please, 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 pretty please with cherries on top, go to iTunes and write a review for this podcast. It is such an important thing for us, because the more reviews we get and the higher we rank, the more people get to listen. So when they type in homeschooling, they will see the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. So your reviews really do help. A lot of people will leave their star reviews and give 5 stars, which is mostly all that we have, which is such a blessing. But if you would also just take a few minutes to write a short little testimonial about the podcast and how it has blessed you and impacted you, we would love that. That really does help to get the word out about this so that we can encourage more moms like yourself. So thank you guys. We love you. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Until then, have a good afternoon. See you then. Bye.